Beneath the waves lie silent witnesses to a lost global economy. 23 ancient shipwrecks are not merely ruins, they are time capsules preserving the first threads of international trade. These sunken vessels hold cargo and personal stories that rewrite our understanding of the ancient world. By the end of this journey, you will see a map of human connection far more vast and intricate than any history book describes. How did a single merchant ship carry treasures from 5 different civilizations? What can a handful of broken pottery tell us about a forgotten voyage? When you think of our distant ancestors, how isolated do you truly believe they were? A shipwreck is a moment frozen in amber. When a vessel sinks, its final voyage is captured in an instant, sealing away the crew's last day at sea, the cargo they carried, and the personal objects they treasured. This is what makes these sites so profoundly different from ruins on land. Cities are rebuilt, tombs are looted, and settlements are buried and forgotten, their stories scattered by time. But a sunken ship rests in a silent, dark world, largely untouched. The deep sea itself becomes a preservative. In the absence of oxygen, a process called anaerobic conservation takes hold. This environment is a kind of stasis field, halting the decay that would instantly destroy organic materials on land. So we do not just find broken pottery and metal coins. We find the ship's wooden hull still holding its shape after 2,000 years. We find delicate textiles, woven baskets, and even traces of the food the sailors ate. Each of these objects is a data point in a grand story. A single amphora, a clay jar used for transport, can tell us what was traded, where it was made, and even the season it was harvested. The design of the ship's hull reveals the technological prowess of its builders, while the personal effects a comb, a cooking pot, a game piece whisper about the lives of the individuals who sailed these vast, dangerous waters. It is through this perfect preservation that we can begin to reconstruct the intricate web of ancient global networks, one salvaged artifact at a time. The sheer diversity of its cargo was a message in itself. Off the coast of modern-day Turkey, the Uluburun shipwreck rests as a time capsule from the late 14th century before the Common Era. This is not the scattered remains of a simple trading vessel. It is a floating microcosm of the entire Bronze Age world. The ship's hold was a treasure chest of raw materials and finished goods. There were 10 tons of copper ingots shaped like ox hides for easy transport. There was a ton of precious tin, the other essential ingredient for making bronze. Together, these metals could have equipped a small army, but the cargo did not stop there. It included ebony logs from Africa, ivory tusks, vibrant glass ingots, and even storage jars filled with terebinth resin, a valuable incense. Then there were the personal treasures, gold pendants from Canaan, a stone scepter from the Balkans, and exquisite jewelry that blended Egyptian and Mycenaean styles. Each artifact was a clue pointing to a different corner of the ancient map. This single ship carried objects from Mycenaean Greece, Cyprus, Egypt, Canaan, and Mesopotamia. How did all of these items end up together? This was not a random collection. It was a carefully assembled portfolio of the most sought-after goods of the era, gathered through a web of trade routes that stretched across the known world. The personal belongings of the crew confirm this international spirit. A collection of writing tablets, merchant seals, and balance weights suggest a multilingual group of traders. They carried weapons from Italy and personal seals from Cyprus, eating from Canaanite pottery while sleeping on Egyptian textiles. They were not just sailors, they were global citizens of their time. The Uluburun forces us to rewrite our history books. It provides undeniable proof that sophisticated, long-distance trade networks flourished over 3,000 years ago. These civilizations were not isolated kingdoms staring at their own navels. They were active participants in a complex economic system, interdependent and connected by the daring voyages of ships like this one. If one ship could tell such a rich story, what secrets might the other 22 wrecks hold? Centuries before the Uluburun's opulent voyage, a far simpler vessel was plying the Aegean Sea. The Dokos shipwreck, resting off the coast of a small Greek island, is the oldest known shipwreck in the world, dating back to around 2,200 years before the Common Era. This was not a royal cargo ship laden with copper and gold. Its hold was filled with everyday essentials, hundreds of clay pots, practical stone tools, and simple millstones. These were the supplies that kept small, scattered communities alive and connected. The pottery itself tells a powerful story. By analyzing the distinct shapes and decorative styles of these clay vessels, archaeologists have traced their origins. They came not from one place, but from mainland Greece and the scattered Cycladic islands. This reveals an active network of local trade, where communities exchanged not luxuries for kings, but necessities for neighbors. So why does a ship full of old pots matter so profoundly? It challenges a major assumption about ancient seafaring. We often picture early maritime trade as a risky endeavor reserved for precious metals, jewels, and spices, goods valuable enough to justify the immense danger. The Dokos wreck turns that idea on its head. It shows us that the very first maritime highways were built not for luxury, but for survival. They were the Bronze Age equivalent of a local supply chain, carrying milling stones for grinding grain and sturdy pots for storing water, oil, and wine. This regular, humble trade was the foundation upon which everything else was built. It connected isolated island villages to larger mainland communities, allowing them to share resources, technologies, and ideas. The routes established by these early merchants carrying simple goods would later become the superhighways for the magnificent cargoes of ships like the Uluburun. The sea was not a barrier, it was a connector from the very beginning, and the proof lies in the broken pottery of the Dokos wreck. The sea lanes of the Bronze Age were not just for general merchants. A third shipwreck, the Gelidonia, reveals a world of highly specialized trade. Sunk off the coast of Turkey around 1,200 years before the Common Era, this vessel was a dedicated bulk carrier for the most critical commodity of its time, the raw materials for bronze. Its entire cargo was metal, copper, and tin ingots piled high in the hold. These were not random lumps of ore. They were cast into distinctive oxide shapes, flat rectangles with 4 extended corners. This unique design was not for show, it was brilliant ancient engineering. The shape made the heavy ingots easier to carry by hand, and more importantly, they locked together perfectly for stable stacking in a ship's rolling belly. This was the standardized shipping container of the late Bronze Age, a clear sign of a streamlined, high-volume trade system, but the story does not end with the cargo. Among the ingots, archaeologists found a tinker's toolkit, hammers, anvils, and molds. This suggests a metalsmith was aboard, not just as a passenger, but as a vital part of the operation. He may have been there to perform emergency repairs to the ship's metal fittings, or perhaps to conduct preliminary work, testing the quality of the metal, or even casting small items for trade at the next port. This transforms the ship from a simple freighter into a floating workshop, a mobile node in a vast industrial network. Even the ship's own construction tells a tale of cultural fusion. The techniques used in its hull show a blend of Aegean and Levantine styles, a hybrid design born from the exchange of ideas across the Mediterranean. This was a ship built for a specific, demanding route, and its very form was shaped by the cultures it connected. The Gelidonia wreck makes one thing abundantly clear: ancient economies were utterly dependent on these long-distance supply chains. A kingdom's power was not just measured in its army, but in its guaranteed access to the copper from Cyprus and the tin from distant, possibly unknown sources. Without ships like this one, the Bronze Age would have literally ground to a halt. So we see a progression from the local trade of Dokos to the opulent bazaar of Uluburun to the industrial specialization of Gelidonia. Each shipwreck uncovers another layer of this lost global system, proving that our ancestors were building an interconnected world thousands of years before we ever imagined. The voyage of the Antikythera ship was one of pure opulence and intellect. Sailing in the 1st century before the Common Era, this massive Roman vessel was a floating gallery of the ancient world's finest treasures when it met its fate off the Greek island of Antikythera. Its hold was a testament to conquest and commerce, brimming with exquisite bronze and marble statues, delicate glassware from Sidon, gold jewelry, and fine furniture. The artistic styles were a blend, classic Greek masterpieces alongside newer Roman works, revealing how trade routes also carried aesthetic tastes, creating a cultural fusion across the Mediterranean. Yet among this wealth of art, a lump of corroded bronze and wood would become the wreck's most astonishing legacy. For decades, this unassuming object was a museum curiosity, its secrets hidden by time and corrosion. Then, painstaking research revealed it to be the Antikythera mechanism, an astoundingly complex analog computer. This device, with its intricate system of interlocking bronze gears, could predict planetary movements, chart the cycles of the Olympic Games, and even forecast eclipses. It was a level of technological sophistication that historians believed was impossible for its time, a masterpiece of engineering lost for 2 millennia. This was not just a luxury good, it was a portable library of astronomical knowledge. Its existence forces a dramatic rethink of ancient technological progress. Such a device could not have been created in isolation. It points to a school of thought, a tradition of advanced mechanics and precise astronomy that was developed somewhere and then carried across the sea. The mechanism itself is proof that technology, the most precious cargo of all, traveled along the same routes as statues and spices. Who was this incredible machine for? A wealthy Roman patron, a scholarly institution, or perhaps a temple? The ship's course, likely carrying spoils from Greece to the heart of Rome, suggests that the appetite for luxury and knowledge was a powerful driver of this ancient globalization. The Antikythera wreck shatters the image of the ancient world as a technologically primitive place, revealing instead a network where art, ideas, and innovation sailed together on the open sea. But what happens when a conqueror falls in love with the culture of the conquered? Off the coast of Tunisia lies the Mahdia shipwreck, a Roman vessel that sank around the 1st century before the Common Era. Its cargo was not spices or metals, but an entire gallery of Greek art. This ship was a floating museum, packed with marble and bronze statues, delicate reliefs, and even architectural columns, all carefully loaded for a journey from conquered Greece to the heart of the rising Roman Republic. These were not mere souvenirs, they were prized loot, the physical spoils of war. Yet their journey tells a deeper story than simple plunder. Many of these sculptures were already centuries old when they were carefully crated and placed in the ship's hold. A Greek statue from the classical era, 200 years old at the time of the shipwreck, was treated not as a discarded antique, but as a masterpiece of immense value. This reveals a profound cultural appetite, a Roman elite so captivated by Greek artistry that they systematically transported its greatest achievements back to their own villas and public forums. The cargo presents a fascinating duality, a mixture of original Greek masterpieces alongside skilled Roman copies. This is where we see the mechanics of cultural appropriation in the ancient world. It was not enough to simply own Greek art. The Roman elite wanted to replicate its style, to absorb its aesthetic and claim it as part of their own burgeoning identity. The conquerors were being conquered not by armies, but by the beauty and sophistication of the very culture they had subdued. The Mahdia wreck provides undeniable physical evidence for this complex exchange. It shows us that military victory and cultural admiration were not opposites. They were two sides of the same coin. The Romans took the land, but Greek art, philosophy, and ideas ultimately shaped the Roman soul. This sunken ship is a time capsule of that transformative moment, a testament to the enduring power of art to travel across seas and sway empires. A simple wooden cross carved by hand was found among the cooking pots on the Yassıada ship. This 7th century Byzantine merchant vessel, resting off the coast of Turkey, offers a profoundly different kind of time capsule. Its cargo was not royal treasure or looted art, but the working lifeblood of the medieval Mediterranean. The hold was packed with amphorae, tall clay jars containing wine from Gaza, olive oil from the Aegean Islands, and other everyday foodstuffs from ports across the Eastern Roman Empire. This was the trucking route of its day, a vessel carrying basic commodities that fed cities and connected economies. While empires rose and fell on land, the practical need for trade for oil and wine carried on uninterrupted. The ship itself is a bridge between eras. Its construction shows a clear evolution from classical Roman techniques, yet it clings to a familiar, sturdy design, a testament to a shipbuilding tradition that was adapting but not broken. But it is the small, personal artifacts that truly bring this wreck to life. We find the crew's simple cooking utensils, the very pots they used to prepare meals during long, lonely voyages. We find their gaming pieces, perhaps used to pass the time during calm nights under the stars, and we find that small cross, a quiet declaration of faith that traveled with them across the sea. These objects paint an intimate portrait of the merchants and sailors who kept the world connected. They were not kings or conquerors, but working people. Their ship demonstrates a remarkable resilience, even as the political unity of the Roman Empire crumbled, giving way to the fragmented world of the Middle Ages. The economic and human networks it had fostered did not simply vanish. Ships like the Yassıada continued their vital work, proving that commerce and daily life could persist through times of great upheaval. This humble wreck fills a critical gap in our understanding, connecting the grand classical trade of antiquity with the emerging medieval world. It shows us that history is not just made in palaces and battlefields, but in the holds of merchant ships by the hands of ordinary people going about their business. A shipwreck can reveal a global economy built not on treasure but on trash. The Serçe Limani vessel, an 11th century Islamic merchant ship discovered off the coast of Turkey, did exactly that. Its primary cargo was not spices or silks but broken glass, nearly 3 tons of it, a mountain of shattered fragments and cullet, the raw material for one of the medieval world's most vibrant industries. This was not a shipwreck of lost riches, it was a floating recycling center. The glass itself, upon analysis, told a precise story of origin. Its chemical signature pointed directly to the Levant, the region encompassing modern-day Syria and Palestine, which was the undisputed Silicon Valley of glass production at the time. This area possessed the unique sand and soda-rich plants needed to create the finest, clearest glass, a technology guarded as closely as any state secret. The ship was carrying the very lifeblood of that industry, not in the form of finished masterpieces, but as raw material, ready to be melted down and reborn. Mixed in with the cullet were also intact vessels, lamps, bowls, and beakers of stunning clarity and color. Their designs were a map of cultural influence, showing styles from Egypt to Mesopotamia, proof that aesthetic trends traveled as swiftly as the ships that carried them. This one cargo hold provides undeniable physical evidence for a sophisticated, circular economy. Recycling was not a modern invention, it was a standard, essential practice. A broken glass vessel in Cairo could be shipped back to the Levant, melted, and transformed into a new luxury item for a merchant in Constantinople, creating a sustainable loop of production and reuse that spanned the entire Mediterranean. The Serçe Limani wreck shatters the myth of a primitive medieval economy. It reveals a highly organized, technologically advanced trade network where specialized knowledge and raw materials flowed freely across the Islamic world, connecting workshops and markets from one end of the sea to the other. This was a system built on intellect and logistics, proving that the most valuable cargo is sometimes the knowledge of what to do with what others have thrown away. Gold and porcelain sailed together on a ship of two worlds. In the Java Sea near Indonesia, the Belitung shipwreck tells a story of a direct ocean highway between two superpowers, the Abbasid Caliphate of the Middle East and Tang Dynasty China. This 9th century Arabian dhow was not merely carrying Chinese goods, it was a floating testament to a bold transoceanic partnership. Its hull was packed with an astonishing 60,000 ceramic items, a treasure trove of bowls, dishes, and exquisite ewers, all fired in the kilns of Changsha. But these were not just any Chinese pots. Many were decorated with cobalt blue designs, a color scheme and artistic style specifically tailored to Islamic tastes. Here was clear proof that Chinese potters were not just making what they knew, they were carefully studying their export market, adapting their art to suit the cultural and religious preferences of customers thousands of miles away. This was globalization in clay, a supply chain responding directly to international demand. Alongside this mountain of ceramics were items of breathtaking luxury, intricately worked gold and silver vessels that speak to the immense profits at stake. This was not a tentative, small-scale exchange. It was a high-value, bulk trade route, a maritime silk road made of porcelain and precious metal. Even the ship itself was a hybrid. Its construction shows a blend of Arabian design, built for the long open ocean voyages across the Indian Ocean, and Southeast Asian techniques, likely incorporated during repairs or through a multicultural crew. This vessel was a product of the very world it connected. The Belitung wreck forces a dramatic shift in our perspective. We are taught that the overland Silk Road was the primary link between East and West, but this ship reveals a parallel, and perhaps even more significant, maritime network already thriving in the 9th century. It proves that Chinese ceramics were not just trickling west in camel caravans, they were crossing the sea by the shipload, destined for the tables of the Islamic elite. How many other ships, now lost to the deep, carried the material evidence of this vast, forgotten ocean exchange? A ship so perfectly preserved it seemed to have sailed from a dream. The Nanhai one, a Chinese merchant vessel from the southern Song dynasty, did not just sink off the coast of Guangdong, it settled gently into the seabed, where silt and mud cradled its entire hull for over 800 years. When it was discovered, it was not a scattered field of debris, but an intact ship, a ghost vessel waiting to tell its story, and what a story its cargo holds. The hold was a cavern of staggering abundance, packed with more than 80,000 individual items. The sheer volume is difficult to grasp, a mountain of ceramics, from delicate celadon plates to sturdy stoneware jars, all destined for markets across Southeast Asia. Alongside them were tons of copper coins, the literal currency of this vast trade network, and the personal belongings of the crew who lived and worked aboard this floating warehouse. This was not a chance voyage, it was a routine delivery on a well-established commercial highway. The ship itself is a masterpiece of engineering. Its construction showcases the advanced techniques that made China a maritime superpower. A hull built with watertight bulkheads, a design that created multiple sealed compartments. This was a safety feature centuries ahead of its time, allowing a ship to take on water in one section without dooming the entire vessel. It was this technological confidence that enabled the long, dangerous ocean voyages across the South China Sea. But the cargo tells another, equally important story. The ceramics did not come from a single imperial kiln. They were sourced from various production centers scattered across inland China. A single bowl's journey began at a kiln in Fujian, was transported overland or along rivers, and was finally consolidated with goods from other regions in a major port before being loaded onto the Nanhai one. This reveals a sophisticated two-tier system, a robust domestic trade network that fed into the powerful engine of international export. The Southern Song Dynasty, pushed south and losing control of the overland Silk Road, did not turn inward. It turned to the sea with unprecedented focus, implementing policies that actively promoted maritime commerce. The Nanhai one is the physical proof of that strategic pivot. It was one of countless ships that transformed the South China Sea into a Chinese lake of commerce, carrying the material culture of an empire to distant shores and weaving an economic web that stretched for thousands of miles. While the Nanhai one showcased the power of Chinese trade, the Quanzhou ship reveals the brilliant engineering that made it all possible. Resting in the mud of its home port, this 13th century vessel is a perfect fossil of Chinese shipbuilding genius. Its massive wooden hull, preserved for centuries, is a textbook of maritime innovation. The first thing you notice are the watertight bulkheads, walls that divided the ship into separate compartments. This was a revolutionary safety feature. If the ship sprang a leak in one section, the water could not flood the entire vessel, allowing it to stay afloat and reach port. It was a concept the rest of the world would not adopt for hundreds of years. Then there is the stern-mounted rudder, a single, large steering oar fixed to the back of the ship. This gave sailors far greater control than the simpler side rudders used elsewhere, enabling them to navigate treacherous coastal waters and powerful ocean currents with newfound precision. Combined with its multiple masts and sophisticated rigging, this ship was a machine built for dominance. It could carry enormous cargoes across vast distances, not as a fragile gamble, but as a routine, reliable operation. The engineering was so advanced it feels almost modern to our eyes. But what was this technological marvel actually carrying? Its hold was filled with the scents of Southeast Asia, aromatic spices like pepper and cloves, valuable medicinal herbs, and rare tropical woods. These were not exotic luxuries for the emperor alone. They were bulk commodities destined for the bustling markets of a massive consumer economy. This cargo tells us that Chinese maritime power was not just about projecting imperial might. It was fueled by everyday demand. Alongside the trade goods, archaeologists found the crew's personal world, simple ceramics, cooking stoves, and inscribed name tags. This blend of high-volume commerce and human presence shows a system that was both vast and personal. The Quanzhou ship was not an isolated experiment. It was a workhorse, one of thousands that plied the seas, its very design enabling a stable, predictable network of exchange. These engineering breakthroughs did not just make ships safer, they made the entire global economy of the medieval world more resilient, more connected, and utterly dependent on the vision of its shipwrights. Far from the familiar waters of the Levant, a Phoenician ship met its end on a foreign shore. The Bajo de la Campana wreck, resting off the coast of southern Spain, is a relic of one of history's most daring expansions. This vessel was a pioneer, sailing at the very edge of the known world around 2,700 years ago. Its mission was not just to trade, but to establish a permanent foothold, connecting the advanced civilizations of the Eastern Mediterranean with the raw material wealth of the West. The cargo tells a story of a two-way street. On one hand, the ship carried exotic goods from the East, precious ivory from Africa, gold and amber from Northern Europe, and finely worked metal goods. These were the luxury items used to dazzle and build relationships with local chieftains. But the hold also contained raw materials gathered from the Iberian Peninsula itself, ingots of silver and copper. This was the true purpose of the voyage, to tap into the legendary metal resources of the West and funnel them back to the hungry empires of the East. The ship itself was a tool built for this specific, dangerous task. Its construction shows classic Phoenician techniques, but with reinforcements and a hull shape adapted to handle the rougher, unpredictable waves of the Atlantic approaches. This was not a vessel designed for a calm coastal cruise in the Mediterranean. It was built to venture beyond the Pillars of Hercules into the great outer ocean. The artifacts found aboard are a testament to daily cultural exchange. We find Phoenician weights and measures alongside local Iberian pottery. This suggests the crew did not just drop anchor, trade, and leave. They lived there for extended periods, establishing trading posts that would eventually grow into full colonies like Gadir, modern-day Cadiz. They ate from local bowls while using their own scales to weigh silver, a powerful image of two worlds merging for mutual benefit. The Bajo de la Campana wreck provides the physical, undeniable evidence for how this process worked. It was not a sudden invasion, but a gradual, persistent maritime effort. Phoenician traders served as intermediaries, connecting the continental trade routes that brought amber from the Baltic with their own maritime network that stretched all the way to the cities of the Levant. This ship was a single thread in a web that wrapped across the ancient world, proving that colonization began not with armies, but with merchant ships seeking new sources of wealth and new opportunities for connection. The Mag and Michael ship did not rely on a single nail. When this vessel sank off the coast of Israel in the 5th century before the Common Era, its builders had assembled the hull using an intricate wooden puzzle. They carved hundreds of small, rectangular pegs called tenons on the edges of the planks. These tenons fit snugly into matching slots, the mortises cut into the edges of the adjoining planks. One by one, the ship's shell was locked together from the keel upward, creating a hull of incredible strength and flexibility, all held fast by wooden pegs and the tight fit of the joints themselves. This mortise and tenon joinery was a masterclass in ancient woodworking, a technique that required immense skill and precision. It created a vessel that could twist and flex with the waves without splintering apart. The cargo it carried was equally revealing. Within its wooden embrace were agricultural goods and ceramic containers that originated in Cyprus and the Aegean. This was not a local fishing boat, but a merchant vessel connecting the Eastern Mediterranean, carrying the everyday wealth of the land across open water. But the true significance of the Mag and Michael lies in its place in the grand story of shipbuilding. It represents a crucial evolutionary step, a perfect hybrid. The ship was built shell first, its planks joined edge to form a solid, watertight skin. Only after this strong shell was complete were the internal framing timbers added for extra reinforcement. This is the missing link between the ancient shell-based method and the later, completely opposite technique that would come to dominate shipbuilding for centuries, where a skeleton of frames was built first and the planks were then attached to that frame. So why does this technical detail matter to us? Because the strength and reliability of the ships themselves directly enabled the expansion of trade. A vessel built with the precision of the Mag and Michael could carry heavier cargoes, withstand longer voyages, and brave more dangerous seas than a simpler, less robust boat. This technological leap did not happen in a palace, it happened in a shipyard, the result of generations of accumulated knowledge passed from one carpenter to the next. Each tightly fitted joint was a promise of safe passage, a guarantee that the wine from Cyprus or the oil from the Aegean would reach its destination. The Mag and Michael is a testament to the unsung engineers of the ancient world, whose innovations in wood and joinery built the very backbone of maritime exchange. The Kyrenia ship carried the scent of almonds and the weight of a long working life. Sunk off the coast of Cyprus in the 4th century before the Common Era, this humble Greek merchant vessel offers a different kind of treasure, a glimpse into the everyday rhythm of ancient commerce. Its hold was not filled with royal gold or exotic spices, but with the staples of daily life. Hundreds of wine amphorae, their distinctive shapes traced to the island of Rhodes, were stacked alongside heavy volcanic millstones and sacks of almonds. This was not a specialized cargo ship on a single, direct route. It was a floating general store, picking up and dropping off goods as it hopped from port to port along the coastline. This practice was known as tramp trading, the ancient equivalent of a delivery truck making multiple stops on a local route. The ship itself tells a story of hard work and resilience. Archaeologists studying its wooden hull found evidence of repeated repairs, patches applied over patches. This vessel was not new, nor was it glamorous. It was a workhorse kept seaworthy through decades of service, its value measured not in speed but in reliability. The personal world of its crew is just as revealing. Simple cooking pots and a handful of coins were found among the timbers. Those coins were the key that locked the wreck into a precise moment in history, allowing experts to date its final voyage with remarkable accuracy. So what does this all mean? The Kyrenia wreck shows us that the grand, intercontinental trade routes we have discussed were only one part of the story. Beneath that layer of high-value, long-distance exchange thrived a dense, vibrant web of local and regional trade. Ships like the Kyrenia were the capillaries of the ancient economy, distributing wine from Rhodes, millstones for baking bread, and almonds for the table to countless small communities. They connected islands to mainlands, farms to ports, and neighbors to neighbors, proving that the global network depended entirely on these smaller, humbler threads. A single ship could carry the soul of a civilization. The Porticello wreck, resting in the Strait of Messina since the 5th century before the Common Era, was a floating testament to the practical reach of classical Greece. Its cargo was a microcosm of the colonial world, a blend of raw material and refined culture. On one hand, its hold contained Athenian ceramics, the famous black and red figure pottery that was the pride of the city's artisans. These were not just containers, they were works of art, their surfaces painted with scenes of gods and heroes, a portable gallery of Greek identity. But right alongside these elegant vases were stacks of rough, unglamorous metal ingots, lead and silver gathered from various mines. This pairing is what makes the Porticello so revealing. It was not a specialized ship like the Gelidonia with its pure metal cargo. This vessel was a generalist, a versatile trader ready to deal in anything of value, from the fruits of the earth to the products of the most sophisticated urban workshops. It was the ancient equivalent of a modern cargo freighter, carrying both industrial raw materials and high-end consumer goods on the same voyage. The route itself tells a crucial story. The ship was sailing the waters between the Greek colonies in southern Italy, an area known as Magna Graecia, and the mainland Greek heartland. This was the economic lifeline of the diaspora. The colonies supplied the raw wealth, the metals and agricultural goods, and in return received the cultural symbols, the pottery, the wine, and the art that made them feel connected to their distant homeland. But the most tantalizing finds were fragments of marble, pieces of a sculpture, or perhaps even an architectural element. This suggests that the ship was not just trading goods, it was transporting culture itself, carrying the very building blocks of a Greek temple or a public square to be assembled in a new colony across the sea. The Porticello ship makes it clear that commerce was the primary vehicle for Greek influence. The philosophical ideas, the artistic styles, the very definition of what it meant to be Greek did not spread by conquest alone. They sailed on the same ships that carried lead for weights and wine for symposia, proving that an amphora could be as powerful as an army in shaping the ancient world. A ship's cargo can be a tool of conquest as powerful as any legion. The Julia, a Roman merchant vessel that sank off the French Riviera in the 1st century before the Common Era, was not just carrying wine, it was carrying a new way of life. Its hold was packed with hundreds of amphorae, all stamped with the distinct marks of specific Italian vineyards and the merchants who owned them. This was not a random assortment, it was a highly organized, targeted export operation. The wine was destined for Gaul, a territory recently brought under Roman control by the armies of Julius Caesar. The Julia's voyage provides a physical blueprint of the next step after military victory. Once the legions secured the land, the merchants moved in, their ships serving as the supply lines for a cultural campaign. The Gallic elite, accustomed to their own traditions, were now being introduced to the taste of Italian wine, served from fine Roman pottery and gleaming metal vessels also found in the wreck. This was not merely trade, it was a deliberate strategy of integration. By creating a demand for Roman luxuries, the empire tied the conquered upper class to its economic and social system. A taste for Italian wine created a dependency on the trade routes that only Rome could provide. The local chieftain who drank from a Roman cup at his feast was subtly being drawn into the orbit of the empire, his status now intertwined with his access to these imported goods. The Julia makes it clear that Romanization was not just a political process imposed from above, it was a commercial one, absorbed sip by sip. This wreck reveals the silent, powerful partnership between the soldier and the merchant, where amphorae of wine could accomplish what swords alone could not, weaving new territories into the very fabric of the empire. The sheer scale of the Madrague de Giens would have dwarfed many of the ships we have discussed. This 1st century before the Common Era Roman freighter was a leviathan of the ancient seas, a vessel capable of carrying a staggering 400 tons of cargo. To put that weight into perspective, it is the equivalent of nearly 300 family cars, all loaded onto a single wooden ship. Its primary cargo was a forest of wine amphorae, thousands of these clay jars meticulously stacked in the hold, all bound from Italy to the newly established Roman provinces in southern Gaul. This was not a casual delivery, it was a bulk shipment on an industrial scale, a floating pipeline for a conquering culture's most potent export. The ship's construction was a marvel of practical engineering, built not for speed or beauty, but for immense capacity and stability. Its hull was enormously wide and deep, a vast floating tub designed to carry maximum weight while remaining manageable in the often treacherous Mediterranean. The techniques used, such as robust internal framing and thick, overlapping hull planking, represent the pinnacle of Roman naval architecture applied to pure commerce. But it is the organization within the hold that truly stuns the imagination. archaeologists found the amphorae arranged in multiple distinct layers, a carefully planned system that transformed the ship's belly into a highly efficient storage unit. The lowest layer was placed directly on the ballast stones, with subsequent layers stacked in a precise, interlocking pattern to prevent shifting during a long voyage. This was not a haphazard pile, it was logistics in physical form, a method perfected through countless voyages to minimize breakage and maximize space. The Madrague de Giens is a powerful testament to the Roman economic machine. This single ship was one cog in a vast, repeating system that connected the agricultural heartland of Italy to the frontier markets of Gaul. It reveals an empire that understood its power relied as much on consistent, massive supply chains as it did on its legions. The wine it carried was more than a commodity. It was the lifeblood of Romanization, and this vessel was a mighty heart, pumping it across the sea in a continuous, overwhelming flow. The kingdom of Axum was a giant of the ancient world, its influence stretching from the highlands of Ethiopia to the shores of the Red Sea. The Black Osaka shipwreck, resting near the coast of Eritrea, is a sunken testament to this African power's maritime reach. Its cargo was a collection of distant origins. Within its wooden frame, archaeologists found transport amphorae, the distinctive clay jars of the eastern Mediterranean, lying side by side with goods that had sailed across the Indian Ocean. This was not a random assortment, it was a deliberate consolidation, a physical handshake between two vast trading spheres. The very design of the ship's hull tells a story of cultural fusion. Its construction techniques show a blend of classic Mediterranean methods, perhaps learned through contact with Roman or Greek traders, and the unique, robust styles developed for the monsoon winds of the Indian Ocean. This vessel was a hybrid built to navigate the complex political and geographic currents of the Red Sea, a narrow waterway that functioned as a global crossroads. The artifacts pulled from the seabed are even more telling. A piece of Roman glassware might sit next to a bead carved in South Asia, while local Axumite pottery shows the influence of foreign designs. This wreck provides the undeniable physical proof that Axum was not a passive recipient of trade, but an active, powerful broker. It controlled the choke point between the Mediterranean and Indian Ocean worlds, taxing goods, providing safe harbor, and loading its own ships with the luxuries of Africa, ivory, gold, and exotic animals to send north and east. The Black Osaka ship forces us to redraw our mental maps of the ancient world, placing an African kingdom squarely at the center of a web that connected Rome to India. A small iron anchor and a single grinding stone mark the final moments of the Gelidonia. Sunk off the southern coast of Sri Lanka in the 2nd century before the Common Era, this ship was a true pioneer, sailing routes that would later become the stuff of legend. Its cargo was a collection of humble yet profound objects, each whispering of an astonishingly long journey. Archaeologists found rough blocks of raw glass from the Mediterranean, tiny carnelian beads drilled and polished in India, and the lingering chemical traces of local spices like pepper and cinnamon. This was not the cargo of a ship hopping along a coastline. The blend of goods points to a direct, daring leap across the open Indian Ocean. The ship itself was a marvel of cultural fusion, built with techniques borrowed from Arabian, Indian, and possibly even Hellenistic shipyards. Its hull was not the product of a single culture's tradition, but a patchwork of the best ideas from across the maritime world, a floating compromise designed for one purpose: to survive the immense power of the monsoon. And survive it did, thanks to the advanced navigation tools found aboard. A simple but precise wooden bearing dial, a type of early compass, indicates the crew could plot their course far from any visible land, guided by the stars and the seasonal winds. This is the real story of the Gelidonia. It proves that merchants were not just passively using the monsoon winds, they were actively exploiting them, timing their voyages with the clockwork precision of the seasons. They would ride the powerful southwesterly winds from the Arabian coast to India and Sri Lanka in the summer, load their ships with goods, and then catch the reversing northeasterlies back home in the winter. This was not a rare, desperate gamble. It was a scheduled, reliable maritime highway operating over a century before the Roman Empire fully embraced Eastern trade. The God-aware wreck rewrites the timeline of globalization, showing us that the Indian Ocean was a connected commercial space long before the Romans ever dreamed of a direct route to the spices of the East. How many other ships like it are still waiting on the seabed, holding the secrets of this first great age of ocean crossing? The 5th century ship known as the Phantom Serçe was a world unto itself, built and traded entirely within Southeast Asia. Resting in the Gulf of Thailand, this vessel from the 4th century of the Common Era carried no Chinese porcelain or Indian statuary. Its cargo was a celebration of local craftsmanship and connection. The hold was filled with pottery shaped by the hands of Khmer potters, elegant bronze bowls cast in the workshops of the Mekong Delta, and countless glass beads produced in regional centers. This was not a collection of exotic imports, but a gathering of goods from across the early kingdoms of Funan and Dvaravati, a vibrant intra-regional trade operating on its own terms. The ship itself was a product of this distinct maritime culture. Its builders used a technique called lashed lug construction. They carved projecting lugs or small blocks directly from the ship's internal frames. Then they lashed the hull planks to these lugs with strong cordage made from plant fibers, creating a vessel that was incredibly flexible and resilient in the face of monsoon seas. This was a brilliant indigenous solution, a shipbuilding philosophy completely different from the nailed or pegged hulls of the Mediterranean or China. Even the smallest artifacts speak to a shared cultural sphere. Ritual objects and personal ornaments found aboard show artistic styles and religious symbols that were common across the region, from the coast of Vietnam to the Malay Peninsula. This suggests that ideas and beliefs were traveling along with the pots and beads, carried by merchants who understood the local currents and languages. The Phantom Serçe wreck forces a profound shift in our perspective. It proves that Southeast Asia was not a passive blank space waiting to be connected by Indian or Chinese traders. It was a bustling, self-sufficient network of maritime exchange, a foundational layer of commerce and culture. These regional routes, established by ships like this one, formed the essential groundwork, the local alliances and navigational knowledge that would later make the area the perfect crossroads for the globe. A ship's cargo can be a map of the entire known world. The Uluburun wreck, a 10th century vessel lying on the seafloor of the Java Sea, carried such a map within its wooden hull. Its hold was a stunningly diverse collection, a physical catalogue of global desire. Stacked side by side were tens of thousands of fine Chinese ceramics, their celadon glazes still shimmering, alongside delicate glassware from the Middle East and exquisite bronze ritual objects from India. But this was not just a collection of imports. Mixed in were local treasures, raw materials like tin and aromatic resins harvested from the Indonesian islands themselves. This was not a ship sailing directly from China to the Middle East. It was a consolidator, gathering the finest goods from multiple directions in a single, strategic location. The Uluburun's route reveals the true engine of this trade, the Indonesian archipelago itself. These islands were not passive stops on a longer journey. They were vibrant, bustling hubs known as entrepots. Think of them as the ancient world's great international airports, places where goods were unloaded, sorted, taxed, and reloaded onto new ships heading in different directions. A Chinese ship might not risk the entire voyage to India, just as an Arab dhow might not sail all the way to China. Instead, they would meet in the middle in these Indonesian ports to exchange their cargoes. The Serçe was a local ship, a workhorse of this hub system. Its mixed cargo proof that it was collecting from these international markets for distribution throughout the archipelago and beyond. Its very design was tailored for this environment. The ship's construction shows a shallow draft and a highly maneuverable hull, adaptations perfectly suited for navigating the complex, reef-studded waterways between the thousands of Indonesian islands. This vessel was built by and for the archipelago, a specialist in local conditions that enabled a global network. The presence of such specific luxury items, like ornate Indian ritual mirrors and jewelry, points to trade with elite, perhaps even royal, markets across Southeast Asia. The Shipwreck provides the undeniable physical evidence that Southeast Asia was the indispensable middleman, the crucial pivot point that made the entire Indian Ocean and South China Sea trade possible. It was here, in these bustling island ports, that the world truly connected, and the Serçe was one of the vital ships that kept that connection alive. The vast Pacific Ocean holds a secret that could shatter our map of ancient exploration. In the remote Marquesas Islands, a shipwreck known only as the Marquesas Wreck lies as a profound enigma. Its remains do not match the familiar design of the great Polynesian voyaging canoes that famously settled these islands. Instead, its construction hints at a different origin, with techniques that echo shipbuilding traditions from faraway Asia, or perhaps even the western coasts of South America. This is not merely a broken boat, it is a ghost from a voyage we never recorded. The artifacts scattered around the site deepen the mystery, materials and objects that are not native to the Polynesian world. Their presence suggests this vessel arrived from somewhere else entirely, carrying with it the physical proof of a long-forgotten journey. Its location in the Marquesas is itself a challenge to history books, a deliberate pin placed far outside the established routes of human migration across the Pacific. If this wreck is truly pre-Columbian, it forces a radical question. Did ancient mariners from distant continents reach the heart of Polynesia long before European explorers ever entered the ocean? The controversy surrounding this site is not just academic, it is a battle over the very story of human connection. For generations, the narrative of the Pacific has been one of settlement from west to east, a slow, deliberate expansion by Polynesian peoples. The Marquesas Wreck stands as a stubborn, silent counter-argument, a piece of evidence that does not fit the accepted pattern. It dares us to consider that the Pacific was not an empty expanse, but a potential meeting ground for cultures we thought were worlds apart. This single, fragmented hull demonstrates the true power of shipwrecks. They are not just confirmations of what we already know, they are keys that can unlock entirely new chapters of our past, forcing historians to ask questions they never thought to pose. The Newport ship was sealed in Welsh mud for over 500 years. When it was uncovered, its timbers told a story of a bustling, practical trade network that thrived in the cold waters of the North Atlantic. This 15th century vessel was a cog, the workhorse of medieval northern Europe, with a broad, flat bottom and a stout, clinker-built hull where each plank overlapped the one below. Its design was perfect for the shallow coastal ports and rough seas of its home waters, but its cargo revealed a world far wider than its sturdy frame might suggest. Inside the hold, archaeologists found a tapestry of European commerce. There were barrels of Portuguese salt, a vital commodity for preserving the fish and meat that fed populations through long winters. Alongside them were casks of French wine, a luxury that had traveled north to grace the tables of the English elite. and woven through it all were bales of English wool cloth, a prized export that was the foundation of the kingdom's economy. This was not a ship of exotic spices or rare silks, but of the foundational goods that built and sustained medieval society. The personal belongings of the crew confirmed this international character. A Portuguese coin was found alongside a French gaming piece and the simple, everyday utensils of an English sailor. These men were not just from different towns, they were from different nations, working together on a vessel that connected their homelands into a single economic unit. The Newport wreck proves that Northern Europe was not an isolated backwater. It was a vibrant, interconnected trading zone operating in parallel to the more famous Mediterranean systems. Its routes carried the essential ingredients of daily life, weaving a web of dependency from the sunny vineyards of France to the salt pans of Portugal and the weaving towns of England. This was globalization on a regional scale, a powerful reminder that even without treasures from the Orient, the humble cargoes of salt, wine, and cloth could bind a continent together. A Spanish anchor rests on a Caribbean reef, its ironwood long since reclaimed by the sea. The Molasses Reef wreck is a ghost from the very dawn of transatlantic conquest, a European vessel that sank in the early 1500s, just years after Columbus first crossed the ocean. This was not a ship of seasoned colonizers, but a pioneer on the raw, dangerous edge of a new world. Its cargo was a stark declaration of intent, a mixture of European goods for trade and the brutal tools of colonization. Iron chisels and carpenter's axes lay beside wrought iron nails and hoops for building barrels, the essential supplies for establishing a permanent foothold in an unfamiliar land. Yet right alongside these practical items were the instruments of coercion and fear, iron shot for early cannons, and the personal weapons of the crew. This vessel was prepared for two possible outcomes, a peaceful exchange of goods or a violent takeover. The ship's very location, carefully mapped on the treacherous reefs of the Turks and Caicos Islands, reveals the tentative, often desperate nature of these first European navigation routes in the Caribbean. These sailors were not following well-charted courses. They were feeling their way through a labyrinth of islands and coral, relying on crude maps and sheer luck. The Molasses Reef wreck provides the undeniable physical evidence of the immediate, tangible consequences of that first contact. Every iron nail, every cannonball, is a piece of the Columbian exchange made solid, a fragment of the old world that was about to permanently reshape the new. This ship did not just carry cargo, it carried the seeds of a transformed hemisphere, a future of conflict, cultural fusion, and unimaginable change, all captured in its sunken frame. When we step back from these individual stories of sunken ships, a grander picture comes into focus. These 23 wrecks are not isolated tragedies, they are data points on a single, sprawling map of human connection. The patterns they reveal are undeniable, painting a portrait of an ancient world that was deeply and deliberately globalized. From the Bronze Age to the dawn of the modern era, trade routes functioned like arteries, pumping goods, ideas, and people across continents and oceans with a regularity that defies our traditional timeline. Look at the cargoes and you see two powerful economic strategies at play. Some ships, like the Gelidonia with its pure load of copper and tin, reveal a world of high-volume specialization where entire vessels were dedicated to a single, critical commodity. Others, like the Uluburun or the Porticello, were floating bazaars carrying a diversified portfolio of goods from raw metal to finished art, ready to meet any market demand. This was not a haphazard system, it was a sophisticated and adaptable global economy. The very wood and nails of these ships tell their own story of technological exchange. The Quanzhou ship with its watertight bulkheads, the Magan Michael with its intricate joinery, the Phantom Serçe with its lashed lug construction, each represents a local solution to a universal challenge. But these techniques did not stay local. We see Mediterranean methods in Aksumite ships and Arabian designs in Southeast Asian waters. These vessels were not just carriers of trade, they were carriers of innovation, their hulls embodying the shared knowledge of countless shipyards across the world. And who were the people on these voyages, the artifacts they left behind? A Cypriot seal next to a Mycenaean sword, a Portuguese coin beside a French game piece, speak of profoundly multicultural crews. These were not national expeditions, but international collaborations. Merchants, sailors, and craftsmen from different cultures lived and worked side by side, their daily lives a quiet negotiation of language, custom, and belief as they moved between worlds. This collective evidence demolishes the comforting myth of isolated ancient civilizations. We can no longer think of Egypt in its splendid isolation, or China behind its Great Wall, or Rome as the sole center of the world. The proof from the seafloor shows us they were all nodes in a vast, humming network. Goods moved, but so did technologies, artistic styles, religious ideas, and even crops and diseases. This was a continuous, pulsating exchange that shaped the destiny of nations. The real mystery is not whether this ancient globalization existed, but why we ever convinced ourselves it did not. What other patterns might we find if we could listen to all the stories the sea still holds? These silent witnesses from the deep demand a fundamental rewrite of our history. The evidence gathered from 23 shipwrecks scattered across millennia and oceans forms an undeniable pattern of ancient globalization. Each vessel, from the Bronze Age Uluburun to the medieval Serçe, was a single thread in a vast and intricate web that connected every corner of the known world. This was not a series of accidental encounters, but a continuous, humming network of exchange that operated for thousands of years. The oceans were not barriers, they were the very superhighways that carried the lifeblood of civilization, goods, ideas, and people across impossible distances. Think about the sheer resilience of these networks. Empires rose and fell on land. The Roman Empire collapsed, the Bronze Age civilizations crumbled, yet the ships kept sailing. The Yassıada wreck, with its humble cargo of oil and wine, shows us that daily commerce and human connection persisted through the greatest political upheavals. This system was far more durable than any single kingdom. It was driven by a universal human need to trade, to connect, and to explore. The artifacts tell a story of profound interdependence. A kingdom's power, like those of the Bronze Age, relied entirely on ships like the Gelidonia to deliver the tin and copper needed for bronze. The sophistication of Chinese engineering, seen in the Quanzhou ship, directly enabled the flow of spices and luxury goods that defined an era. A Roman's identity was shaped by the Greek art carried on the Mahdia wreck, and a Gaul's taste was transformed by the Italian wine from the Giulia. Every object, from a broken piece of Serçe Limani glass to a Belitung ceramic bowl, is a testament to a world that was mutually reliant, where the fate of one culture was subtly, irrevocably tied to the actions of another an ocean away. This perspective changes everything. We can no longer view ancient history as a collection of isolated, splendid civilizations. Egypt, Rome, China, Aksum, they were all active, willing participants in a global conversation, their fortunes rising and falling with the tides of maritime trade. The real story of our past is not one of separation, but of constant, dynamic connection. So the next time you look at a map, do not see the blue spaces as empty divides. See them as they truly were, and as they remain, the ancient, enduring highways that have always connected humanity.